Hello, I'm Sensei Alex Kakuya. Thanks for joining me this evening. The title of tonight's Dharma talk is Practicing Buddhism While Sick. Before we get into that, please subscribe and hit the notification bell. That way you'll be notified when I post talks in the future. If you wouldn't mind hitting the like button, that'd be great too. Now, if you've been following the channel for a while, you know I've been on sabbatical for the last 3 months. And during that time, I've been doing 3 things primarily, and then a 4th thing, which was completely unintentional, but it was a good learning experience. First, I've been taking care of things here around the homestead. So taking care of repairs that I didn't get to over the winter, making sure our animal pens were secure and predator proof. We recently brought rabbits onto the property, so I wanted to make sure they were cared for. Also been doing a lot of planting, so carrots, radishes, asparagus, potatoes. We're doing those again this year. And if you follow me on Instagram or Facebook, you've seen pictures of all that. I've also been diving deep into my own personal spiritual practice, so spending more time than I'm normally able to sitting in front of my altar, chanting, meditating. Also reading and diving deep into the sutras. Finally, I wrote a book. It's entitled Year of Zen Mindfulness. It's available anywhere books are sold, and I'll be telling you more about that at the end of tonight's Dharma talk, so make sure you stick around until then. But that being said, I'm going to get around to the 4th thing, which I didn't want to do over my sabbatical, but I ended up doing it anyway. It's part of the reason I was away for longer than I originally planned, and that is I got sick with COVID and mono at the same time. Not sure exactly how it happened. I'm a bit of a homebody. I spend most of my time with animals, not so much with people, and yet I managed to contract both of these diseases. And it started off as just a sore throat. I thought maybe my allergies were kicking in earlier than expected. That turned into a cough. The sore throat got worse until there was swelling. It got hard to swallow. Eating became difficult, even swallowing liquids. I also had a fever and migraine headaches, so I was not in a good spot. But I thought I was just having a very bad flu, so I'd been working outside in the rain a lot. It comes with the territory. So I did have the presence of mind to quarantine myself. I stayed at the house, didn't go out. My partner slept upstairs in our bed, and I slept downstairs on the couch because I didn't want her to get sick with whatever I had. Hadn't been diagnosed at the time. And to make it all worse, I was constantly coughing up phlegm. I don't know what it was, but it seemed like every time I laid down completely horizontally to try and go to sleep, I'd have a coughing fit. And I just saw this green-brown stuff came out of my throat. So that was fun. So if you can imagine, I'm laid out on the couch. I've got a bunch of pillows underneath me, so I'm kind of sitting up, kind of laying down, and I'm just doing my best to just, get through it all. And I can't sleep, and I decide, well, if I can't sleep, I might as well try and meditate. Because I'm a Buddhist teacher, and meditation is our solution to everything. So that's what I did. I focused on my breath, breathing in and out through the nose, just like we do during seated meditation, expanding the belly button on every inhale, relaxing on every exhale. And then at first, not much of anything happened. Like I said, it was painful to breathe even because I had so much fluid in my throat and the swelling, or fluid in my lungs rather, and the swelling in my throat. But I stuck with it. And over time, a feeling of calm started to come over me. I want to be clear, my physical symptoms didn't go away. I felt the nausea, I felt the fever, I felt the chills. Buddhism didn't magically cure me of my illness, but this practice of mindful breathing, what it did was it separated me from my suffering. The best way I can describe it is it felt like I wasn't sick. It was just sickness was happening, if that makes sense. I felt all the physical sensations, but I didn't attach myself to them like I had previously. I didn't feel sorry for myself anymore. Why is this happening to me? I was able to experience the sickness in my body, but not be enthralled by it. So I kept breathing, I kept breathing. This took place over a period of hours. And eventually, I actually started to feel quite blissful, believe it or not. And I really can't describe what it is to feel sick, physically ill, and blissful at the same time, but it happened. It was at this point that my partner had me take my temperature, and we found out I had a fever, already had a fever, but it went from 101 to 102, and at this point it was at 104. So at that point she said that enough's enough, we're going to the hospital, which was a good move on her part, right? So we go to the hospital. They stick the cotton swab up my nose to test for COVID. They draw blood and they run a bunch of tests, do x-rays of my lungs, and they determine that I have mono and I have COVID. So at that point, they gave me an IV to give me fluids. They gave me some other medication to ease the swelling in my throat. And they also gave me something to break my fever. So by the time we left the hospital, I wasn't all better, but I was definitely feeling better. I was over the hump. My fever broke. I could swallow again, which meant I could eat. That was nice. And over the period of a couple days and weeks, this all happened about 3 weeks ago, I started to feel better. And now I'm more or less back to normal. Every now and then I have a little bit of fatigue, but nothing like what I was experiencing. So I was very, very fortunate because not everyone comes out as well as I did. And I've been reflecting on this experience, and I've come away with it with a couple of insights I'd like to share. The first was the experience I had on the couch when I brought my focus to my breath, this mindful breathing that goes back 2,600 years to the time of Buddha. And I realized that that teaching is part of Buddhism for a reason. The First Noble Truth tells us life is suffering, right? And part of our Buddhist practice is to learn to separate ourselves from our suffering, not to run away from it, but then also not to be enthralled by it. It's happening, but it's not happening to us per se. It's something we're experiencing. It's karma, threads of karma coming together in this thing we call a body, but we don't have to be so wrapped up in it. And practices like mindful breathing allow us to separate just enough from our suffering so that we can endure it more easily. So this is what I would call a wisdom teaching of Buddhism. On the flip side, we have the compassion teaching, which is what I experienced at the hospital, with the doctors and the nurses and my partner all working to care for me and heal my body so I could be here tonight giving a Dharma talk. So we have wisdom and we have compassion. And I find that interesting because in Buddhism we're often told that the road to enlightenment requires us to practice wisdom and compassion. The full acceptance of our suffering, the willingness to endure it, and also the understanding that we cannot endure it alone. We have to be willing to reach out to others for help, whether that's our Buddhist Sangha or, in this case, medical staff. And on the flip side, we have to be willing to offer that help to others. That's the compassion piece. And the wisdom piece, of course, is seeing our suffering for what it is and learning to deal with it skillfully. So I came away from that experience, the COVID and the mono, feeling two things. First off, feeling immense gratitude gratitude towards the Buddha, gratitude towards the medical staff that helped me, and also gratitude to my Sangha, which is all of you, because what I realize is that my personal practice is fueled by our group practice. And me giving these Dharma talks forces me to dive deeper into this Buddhist scripture, which then helps me in times like what I just described. And it's my sincere hope that these Dharma talks are helping you in your own personal practice. I also came away from it with a strong sense of humility. Understanding that I can wear robes, I can wear the wagesa, I can quote scripture, but at the end of the day, I can't do it alone. I require help. Help from all sentient beings to keep chugging down this road towards enlightenment. So whatever suffering we are dealing with in this moment, we can rely on those practices, those wisdom practices of Buddhism and those compassion practices to, one, help us work with our own suffering, but then also understand when it's time to reach out for help. And as we do that, a very healthy, very life-affirming cycle develops where we help each other, assist each other, realize enlightenment, not just for our own benefit, but for the benefit of all sentient beings. Amitabha. So that's the talk for today. I hope it was helpful. I'll just end with telling you about my book. As I said, it's called A Year of Zen Mindfulness. Here it is. Available anywhere books are sold. And what I did with this text is it's 365 passages, koans, daily affirmations, meditations, mindfulness practices that are designed to help us incorporate Buddhist wisdom into our daily life. So you can read it one practice a day, you can tear through it, you can do them in order, you can bounce around, it's completely up to you. And I'll just read one passage that I'm particularly fond of. It's a koan. And this one, if you end up picking up a copy for yourself and you want to find it, it's for June 20th. And it says this: a student sat down in front of their teacher and asked, "What should I do if my legs start to hurt during seated meditation?" The teacher replied, "Switch to standing meditation." Amitabha.